General Manager of the Mojave Air and Spaceport. That's another reason why the AV rocks, right? She is responsible for maintaining more than 3,000 acres of property and managing 150 tenant contracts. She oversees all air and space operations at that airport. So let's give a big, warm Antelope Valley Rocks welcome to KARINA DREES.
Good morning. Thank you, Vicki, for the introduction. It is truly a pleasure to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mojave Air and Spaceport, what we're all about, and talk about some of our customers and some of the amazing things that are going on in Mojave. So we are a general aviation airport and spaceport. We sit right at the bottom of the R2508 airspace complex. This might not mean a whole lot to a lot of you, but this is really a key benefit to our customers. Although we started as a general aviation airport in the 1970s, 95% of our revenue now comes from business customers. This chart represents the breakdown by business category of businesses that Mojave is home to, and now 70% of our business is in the aerospace industries, including DoD aerospace and new space industries. There are a lot of reasons that customers continue to come to Mojave. We do have the right attitude for attracting new business. We have the airspace and the climate that's necessary to conduct flight tests. And thanks to my predecessor, Stu Witt, we now have the brand that new customers seek when looking for a business-friendly environment to do business. This list represents some of our larger customers, but we now have 130 customers under contract, including 70 companies. What makes Mojave Air and Spaceport so unique, however, is the concentration of new space companies. There are now 10 licensed FAA spaceports across the country, and we're really happy to say that we play host to a lot of these companies. I'd like to introduce you to a few of these companies now. Maston Space Systems was founded in 2004 with a mission of extending human presence across the solar system. Maston's core competency is entry, descent, and landing technologies in reusable vehicles, having successfully demonstrated nearly 400 vertical takeoff and landings. Maston was one of 3 companies also that was selected for the DARPA XS-1 program to develop a more routine, low-cost launch vehicle. Maston's employment growth rose by 70% from 2015 to 2016, making them one of the fastest growing small businesses in Mojave. X-Core Aerospace was founded in 1999, and their team is now split between Mojave and Midland, Texas. X-Core excels at rocket engine design and production, and they provide services to customers such as launch systems where their engines are value-added, launch missions to zero gravity, payload and tourism. The Lynx is X-Core's commercial suborbital vehicle designed for scientific missions and taking paying passengers into weightlessness and back to the Earth. Orbital ATK is headquartered in Dulles, Virginia, and employs more than 12,000 people in 17 states across the country. We are delighted that one of these states happens to be California, and Mojave is home to their L-1011, which is now the last active L-1011 in the world. Orbital ATK has flown or produced more than 85 space launch vehicles. They have 3 commercial launch vehicles, including Pegasus, which is launched using the L-1011. Orbital ATK is also a supplier for NASA's ISS Commercial Cargo Resupply Service. Scaled Composites was founded in 1982 by Bert Rutan. The company's current president is Ben Diachin. They excel at technology demonstration, design, fabrication, and test services, and provide low-cost rapid delivery of aerospace vehicle prototypes. Scaled is Mojave Air and Spaceport's largest employer with more than 500 employees now. And they occupy about 500,000 square feet of space at the airport. They're also one of the busiest companies in Mojave, currently working on 15 concurrent projects. I'd like to show you a really brief, about 20-second teaser video about Scaled, if we can get that queued up, and this will give you a little bit better idea of what's going on. company. They're really doing some pretty fantastic things at scale. All right, there we go. Ecotech doesn't exactly fall into the new space category, but they've had a really exciting year this year, so I wanted to highlight them as well. Ecotech has been an icon in Mojave for more than 20 years. They started operations in 1992, and they have grown the company to 225 employees. They provide high-quality coatings technologies to a number of companies, including Boeing, Lockheed, and Northrop Grumman. Over the years, they grew the company to more than $25 million in revenue. And they have recently announced that they've sold the company to Precision Cast Parts, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company. Of course, our future is not without its challenges. We've been told recently that there's a lack of FAA funding for expansion projects and runway projects until at least 2019. But to mitigate this, we remain dedicated to maintaining our existing infrastructure for our customers. With 10 FAA licensed spaceports across the country, we face stiffer competition from other state and local governments that provide cash incentives to new space companies to try to get them to come to their states. But we really believe that the competitive advantages that we have are really difficult to duplicate around the country, and these advantages are going to mitigate some of these concerns. The one challenge we are starting to spend more time on is employee retention. Our companies lose too many employees due in part to the poor quality of life in the area. We are not able to control what is outside our fence line, so we started to mitigate this by controlling what's inside our fence line. 2 months ago, we signed a contract with Monster Fitness to open up a gym on site at the airport. And in that 2-month period, they grew to more than 400 members, and this is purely by word-of-mouth advertising, so there's absolutely market demand for this type of business in Mojave. If some of the AV business leaders are considering expanding, I would welcome you to consider Mojave. It really is a fast-growing market. So why is any of this important? The size of the global space industry, according to the FAA, is now $324 billion. 24% of this is government space budget, so it is no longer a government-only interest. More and more investors are entering this industry. Competition is increasing, which will benefit the entire industry and humanity as a whole. Many companies at Mojave Air Spaceport have customers in both the government sector and the private sector, and many are funded by both. The market is growing. In 2012, the FAA AST licensed 2 experimental launches, and this year they expect to license 50 launches. In November last year, President Obama signed into law the Space Act, which gives the new space industry some of the needed protections to operate across the country. The passage of this act, which was led by our own Congressman McCarthy, provides us with the tools necessary to continue building a new industry. We are grateful for his leadership and dedication to seeing this through. There's something really special about an industry that attracts people who believe in something greater than themselves. They choose to dedicate their lives and careers in order to contribute some small fraction of the outcome to advance humanity. They are not dreamers, they are explorers. The test pilots in Mojave who play a vital role in shaping this industry risk a great deal in helping all of us realize our dreams. I'd like to share with you why I have such a deep respect for these pilots and why their missions are so important. If we can cue the video.
Test pilots are today and always have been since 100 years ago in the early days of aviation, a different breed. They're risk takers.
If you don't take the risk, then you just accept what you've got right now, and we come to a grinding halt.
They're willing to go into environments that there is a certain amount of unknown and literally test the edge of the envelope.
To become a great test pilot, one must venture into the unknown.
And the fact that they're willing to do so is what sets them apart.
The test pilots here are like gladiators entering into the arena. You have to be willing to get into the arena, to be part of this community.
Without without them, we can't continue to advance.
A great test pilot needs to be more than a job for them. They should have an insatiable quest to find out all they can.
The pilots that Mojave attracts are some of the most heroic people I've ever met. These individuals are truly risking their lives on a regular basis.
I think I have something that all test pilots fear, and it's the fear of failure.
The most dangerous part of our job is dealing with firsts.
Alan Shepard, when he became Admiral, he wrote the test pilot's prayer, and it is, "Dear God, please don't let me foul up," except he didn't use that word.
It's a prayer that brings some stress to your loved ones, and they always have that nagging feel in the back of their mind on whether you will come home.
But you also get a chance to prove your mettle, and if you're lucky, place in history. And the record books are full of such achievements, and it only happens here.
The facilities at Mojave itself are first class, and of course its geographical position underneath the R2508 complex makes the airspace around here so easy to access.
It's got this great infrastructure, multiple runways, caliber personnel that you'd only expect in a big city, but it's not a big city. It's out in a rural, small-town environment with an attitude of getting things done.
In the local area, there are lots of good alternative airfields as well. Should anything go wrong at Mojave and we have to divert.
This is truly where most of the history of modern aviation and space industry is.
We have a very unique environment here of innovation and entrepreneurship. We give our companies permission to test freely, and we're here to provide the support necessary to make sure their businesses are successful.
Mojave is just simply a great place to be in the development of anything that's aerospace related. The environment, the culture, the regulatory capabilities here are perfect to provide us the flexibility as we develop our engines, as we develop our spacecraft, as we continue to test those.
Mojave has been a fantastic place for us as we've gone through the successes and challenges of test flying a spaceflight vehicle. The people here understand the challenges of spaceflight, and they also understand the importance of space to the future of humanity.
To me, this is the new frontier. This is what's going to help change so much of not only our country, but the universe around it. Things that we want to accomplish, it's happening right here in Mojave.
The spirit of the test pilot is truly the spirit of Mojave Air and Spaceport.
I am a test pilot.
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 So, one company you may have noticed was absent from my introduction, and that's because you can hear directly from them. It is my pleasure to introduce George Whitesides. George is the CEO of Virgin Galactic and the Spaceship Company, where he guides all aspects of building the world's first commercial space line, including the spaceflight program, as well as the small satellite launch capability. Prior to Virgin Galactic, George served as the Chief of Staff for NASA. George has testified on American space policy before Congress and the President's Commission on Implementation of the U.S. Space Exploration Policy. Not surprisingly, Space News has selected him as one of 12 people to watch in the space industry. Please join me in welcoming George Whitesides.
Thanks very much, Karina. It's great to be here with you all today and to share some thoughts on space and Virgin Galactic and the Spaceship Company. You know, Karina is someone that we're all very grateful to have leading in Mojave. She took the reins from Stu Witt, local legend over the last few months, and has been doing just a terrific job. And I think that that's sort of an interesting and representative sign of the vitality of the Antelope Valley and the vitality of the aerospace sector as new projects and new activities come into our world. And hopefully I'll be able to talk a little bit about that today. Before I begin, I wanted to just underscore a couple of things that Karina had, which were, I think, well said. First of all, we are really grateful for our local government officials and representation, many of whom are here today, Congressman McCarthy and Congressman Knight, as well as our state and local officials, have done just a great job. The bill that Karina referred to, the new Space Act, was passed in this Congress and passed in a bipartisan way. And I think that that's a great sign of the recognition that aerospace, American aerospace, is something that everyone can get behind, that the innovation that's being shown by the American aerospace sector is something that both parties can agree on, and we were certainly very grateful for the passage of that bill. I also want to say that the Mojave Airport is indeed an amazing place to operate and work, and it's even better now that there's a monster gym. I'm a member of that gym, and I have to admit I'm not usually the most active person. That's reserved for our chief engineer, Scott Ostrom, but he is. But it's great to have that in the area, and something that we can take advantage of. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing at Virgin Galactic and the Spaceship Company. And I really wanted to actually focus in on the Spaceship Company because Virgin gets a lot of attention, but I'm the CEO of both companies. And what we recently did on Friday was to roll out a new vehicle following our flight test accident last year or in 2014. And I think the achievement of the TSC team is something that I'm tremendously proud of, because that's an effort that is not easy to do, that we've essentially built a company from scratch that now encompasses virtually all the areas of aerospace development, manufacturing, and test. And I'm proud of it, so I want to talk to you about that. First, I'll show you a couple slides from the event that we did on Friday. As some of you may have seen, we rolled out our new spaceship. I think I'm supposed to control this here. Before I do that, let me just say, so the Spaceship Company and Virgin are essentially sister companies. The general organization between them, for those of you who don't know, is Virgin Galactic is going to be the operator, the commercial operator of these vehicles, and TSC is going to be the manufacturer and the tester of these vehicles. And so the test sort of is shared responsibility between the two companies. And so that's the relationship, and I'm the CEO of both companies. So on Friday we unveiled our new spaceship. It's called Spaceship Unity, and it's a beautiful vehicle. I'll show you a little bit of footage of the event at the end of my talk. But it was a really special moment because obviously the flight test accident that we had in 2014 was a big blow for our company, but the way our company responded and the people inside our company responded, I think, is emblematic of the spirit that resides within the Antelope Valley, which is a spirit that is strong, that has resolve, that understands that flight test is a hard thing, but that the progress that is made in flight test and the lessons that are learned are things that feed into the benefit of our future, our common future, our future of our children and the future of the world. And so I'm really happy that we've gotten to this milestone. We still have a fairly extensive test program still in front of us, but to get to this point was a major deal for our company, and I'll show you a little bit of footage about that. We were happy to have this guy come. That's Han Solo. He came at the last minute, but we were like, that's pretty awesome. We got Han Solo at the controls. And Harrison Ford is a pilot, as many of you know, and so was very appreciative of the chance to get a tour from our chief pilot, Dave Mackay, there of the cockpit and the various systems there. And here's the team. You know, we've now got over 400 people in Mojave between TSC and TSC and Virgin Galactic. The majority of those folks are in the Spaceship Company. That's about 330 people now, and yeah, so they've done a great job, and I want to talk to you about that. So just to give you a sense of the facilities that we've got in Mojave, we have now we have on order of magnitude, 150,000 square feet of facilities. We have a big, large span hangar where we keep the White Knight, which is the carrier aircraft, and we also have some other buildings in which we do manufacturing, and we have large ovens and autoclaves, various other things. We also have 3 rocket test facilities now. When we were starting out a few years ago, with our own propulsion programs, it turns out that we looked around and see if we could use other people's facilities, and we decided that we would make that possible internally. And the fact that we were able to help set up those facilities in Mojave on the airport is just a sign of the can-do attitude that KARINA and her team brings to the Mojave Air and Spaceport. Sometimes California, I think, gets a rap of a difficult place to do business in, but I can tell you from my perspective that Mojave is a great place to do business and a great place to do aerospace tests. So we have a liquid propulsion test stand where we can do up to over 100,000-pound liquid motors, and we're now testing a 75,000-pound motor as well as some smaller upper stage motors for our orbital launch vehicle, which is called Launcher 1. And we're also, we've got 2 hybrid propulsion motor test stands, one vertical and one horizontal. The N and the K and the U are shorthand as a sort of an insider's joke. We've named the test stands after Richard Branson's vacation properties. So N is Necker, which is actually an island in the Caribbean. K is the Casbah, which is in Morocco, and U is Ulasaba, which is in in Africa. And while I am a huge fan of Mojave, I think it's safe to say that those particular test sites wouldn't be necessarily the first thing that you think of when you visit those vacation homes. But be that as it may, we have to have a little bit of humor in the desert. So we now have comprehensive development capabilities. I'm sure that no one can read this slide, but they range across design, modeling, and analysis. We have now dozens of engineers who work on all aspects of those fields. We have really deep composite manufacturing capability inside TSC now, from pre-preg, wet lay, bladder molding, autoclave, various different kinds of tooling. We can build our own tools inside. We use laser projection. It's all the latest and greatest stuff that we've got up there now. Here are just some examples of the work that we do. You can see some winded composite parts on the right. That's a hybrid rocket motor that we'll install into the spaceship, and a variety of other composite materials and parts in that set of images. We also have extensive metal fabrication capabilities, including all the great set of machines for 3D printing, 3D manufacturing, and in terms of assembly and integration. We now have the capability to do all the electrical for the spaceship, large-scale bonded assembly, metrology, all the stuff that we need to do. In terms of testing and validation, we've now built a world-class test and validation organization. We have one of the leaders of that here today, or a few of the leaders of that here today at our table. And that includes not just ground test with large-scale structural assemblies and things like that, as well as coupon testing and all the way to flight testing. And so we're excited to take on the responsibility of running the spaceship's flight test program once we get that into the air later on this year. Our most important asset, of course, is our people. You can see the growth curve. When I came on board in 2010 here, we had just a handful of people, and now we've, as I say, we've grown into several hundred people and a tremendously varied team, bringing together the cultures of airplanes and spaceships, or space, into one team, and they're just an incredible group of people, and I'm so happy to work with them every day. So I don't want to take too much time, but what I did want to do was just to show a little bit of video that underscores, I think, to me, the true power of what we're involved in, which is, at heart, opening space up to the rest of us. I used to work at NASA. I'm a huge fan of NASA. But NASA's job is not to open space for all of us. That's going to fall to the private sector. And I think that that's going to have a huge impact on the world. I think space is critical to many of our planet's greatest challenges, whether that be the environment, or food security, or communications, navigations, remote sensing, transportation, various important ways in which aerospace and space can play a huge role in our children's future. And so, Spaceship 2 is one step along that pathway. It's not the end goal, but it's an important step in that path. And yeah, so we had a very special person help us name Spaceship Two, and well, I'll just let the video speak for that. So thanks very much.
I have always dreamed of space flight, but for so many years, I thought it was just that, a dream. Confined to Earth, and in a wheelchair, how could I experience the majesty of space, except through imagination and my work in theoretical physics? I never thought I would have the opportunity to see our beautiful planet from space, or gaze outward into the infinity beyond. This was the domain of astronauts, the lucky few who get to experience the wonder and thrill of space flight. But I had reckoned without the dream of another, a man with a vision and persistence, to open up space flight for ordinary earthbound citizens. Richard Branson made it his mission to make space flight a reality for those intrepid enough to venture beyond the boundaries of the Earth's atmosphere. Even so, I did not foresee that I would be among the early passengers bound for this extraordinary experience. I have had ALS for over 50 years now, and while I had no fear of adventure, others do not always take the same view. Fortunately, I have found a kindred spirit in Richard Branson. In a radio interview, I once confessed that my ultimate ambition was to fly into space, but I thought no one would take me. Following this, Richard called me from Necker Island to offer me a seat. I said yes immediately. Since that day, I have never changed my mind. If I am able to go, and if Richard will still take me, I would be very proud to fly on this spaceship. I have long been an enthusiastic supporter of human space flight, and in particular, efforts aimed at making this enormous human achievement more accessible. The first private astronauts will be pioneers. The first flights are expensive, but over time, I hope that space flight will become within the reach of far more of the Earth's population. We are entering a new space age, and I hope this will help to create a new unity. Space exploration has already been a great unifier. We seem able to cooperate between nations in space in a way we can only envy on Earth. Taking more and more passengers out into space will enable them and us to look both outwards and back, but with a fresh perspective in both directions. It will help bring new meaning to our place on Earth and to our responsibilities as its stewards. And it will help us to recognize our place and our future in the cosmos, which is where I believe our ultimate destiny lies. Richard, I am so very happy to be playing a part in this celebration, and in particular, to be naming such an important world first, assisted I understand by your granddaughter, Evania, who is one today. It is my hope that she and her generation will look back on our efforts and recognize that by opening up space, we helped to change the world for good. Please welcome Berkeley Spaceship Unity.
Make the Antelope Valley a great place to live and work. One example is our wonderful education programs. In the AV, we don't just rock, we soar. Students on Academic Rise High School, or SOAR, provides a unique learning environment for underrepresented students that focuses on math, science, and engineering. These students have a lot of potential, but don't necessarily perform well in traditional schools. SOAR serves about 400 9th through 12th graders. These students take both high school classes and college level classes at Antelope Valley College. The program is designed to inspire students to work hard and stretch themselves intellectually, and it is certainly successful. In 2015, a majority of SOAR graduates received their high school diploma and associate's degree from AVC at the same time. SOAR is consistently ranked as one of the top high schools in California, and Principal Crist was recently named one of California's 30 most influential high school principals by Mometrix Test Preparation. And SOAR is not the only educational institution doing a great job of preparing students for success in college and their careers. Highland High School goes above and beyond with a mentoring program for their Law and Government Academy. Palmdale High School has an amazing choir program directed by Mike McCullough that has competed internationally. Desert Christian High School literally shot for the stars with their International Space Station project. And Lancaster High School boasts the Eagle Robotics team and Jamie Goodrow's work with the Oath students and Pride of the Nation events. Of course, it's impossible to touch on all of the positive educational programs our schools provide our students, but they are just one reason the AV rocks.
Welcome to Major General David A. Harris.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Vicki, for that kind introduction, and to the Antelope Valley Board of Trade for inviting me to address you today. This is a great group with a great mission. Let me make sure that I can actually operate this. I like your theme, Antelope Valley Rocks. That's cool. But until now, whenever somebody said, Antelope Valley rocks, that was the signal to pull aggressively back on the stick. We'll change the definition a little bit for you today. The Air Force sits on a very stable foundation provided by the Air Force Material Command. These are the 6 areas that the Air Force Material Command provides. The nuclear, as well as the installation and mission support that you see at the bottom. But I'd like to focus sort of on the middle of the chart. Technology at the Air Force Research Lab, including the lab the folks at the lab that are out on Lehman Ridge at Edwards Air Force Base, invent the technology. The Lifecycle Management Center, they're the acquisition guys. They're the business deal guys that get the best value for the taxpayer. We sit here at Test and Evaluation. Our job is to make sure that we perform world-class test and evaluation for the warfighter, making sure that we've worked all the bugs out of any of these systems before they make it to the warfighter. And last but not least is sustainment. Now I'd like to show you a little video that'll introduce some of the things in that $31 billion enterprise that Vicki was telling you about, and tell you how we provide value for the warfighter. Our charges are to be agile, ready, and right. Let me explain. Unfortunately, life is what life is. And sometimes the programs don't function as they were laid out in their original form. Funding profiles might be changed. Changes to the mission set or global geopolitical changes take place. We have to be agile in the Air Force Test Center to respond rapidly to those changes. We have to be ready. When we have a test operation, what we're doing is guessing what the technology will be 10, 15, 20 years out into the future. In order to be ready to test new weapon capability, we have to concentrate and be proactive on being ready to test. As technology improves, it puts great demands on the instrumentation, the ranges, and the pilots and crew members that fly those missions, as well as the test engineers on the ground, making sure that we get it right. Getting it right is the last thing. There is no room for doubt. We must be very scientific, very repeatable, very unimpeachable in our opinions of these weapon systems as they go forward. Getting that right is one of the main priorities of the Air Force test. Now, the test center is not just Edwards Air Force Base. It's located in a variety of locations across the United States. The three that you see there in this map are the primary ones that I'll be talking about today. And as a test center, we have a coast-to-coast responsibility. You'll see my ugly mug there at the top of this organization chart. To your right are the vice commanders, command chiefs, the people that are our ambassadors to the rest of the Air Force. To your left on this chart, you'll see Dave Robertson, the executive director, and under him are three 50-pound cranium SL PhDs that keep us on the cutting edge of technology in all aspects of the Air Force's mission. And they are located at a variety of places. Dr. Joe Nichols, you see on the right, is located here at Edwards. And below them, you'll see the three site commanders. One for Eglin Air Force Base, one here at Edwards, and one out at Arnold Air Force Base in Central Tennessee. I'd like you to focus for a second on General Carl Schaefer. One-star general. He is really the boss at Eglin Air Force Base. I'm the boss of all the Air Force bases within the test center, and they have to be somewhere, right? So why not Edwards, the epicenter of so much history? But General Schaefer is really the boss of Edwards Air Force Base, not me. He's the mayor of the town of Edwards, unelected. He's also the leader of the technological advances and flight test that goes on within the 412th Test Wing, which is the host unit at Edwards. Now, writ large, the Air Force Test Center is in all these 31 different locations. An annual operating budget of about $2 billion. We run three major installations, essentially as the mayor of that town, and host all the tenant units that are on those locations. We take care of about $31 billion of precious taxpayer money in the form of infrastructure and test resources. With over 100 aircraft types, not 100 aircraft, 100 aircraft types. This isn't Base X, where there might be dozens of the exact same model of aircraft to do a particular combat mission. In the test world, we have one or two or a small fleet of a variety of different airplanes. So truly at Edwards Air Force Base, every day is like an air show. We also have more than 160 ground test facilities and 12 of the unique test cells that are not reproduced anywhere around the world. Let me tell you just a little bit about Arnold Engineering Development Complex. That's where most of our basic research into flight dynamics happens. That's where the big wind tunnels are. You can see some of their products there. Computational fluid dynamicists predict the airflow in various flight regimes, greatly reducing the risk of a failure in flight that would be catastrophic not only for the lives of those operators on board, but for the program itself and by extension the warfighter. Jet engines are tested there, where we can replicate perhaps perhaps a sea salt environment that a naval fighter plane might encounter, and reproduce the effects of that sea salt environment over the entire lifespan of the engine. Out on the West Coast, they have a large wind tunnel at Moffett Field in the Bay Area, where you can suspend an entire full-sized helicopter or aircraft. We even tested the parachutes that landed spacecraft on Mars in the wind tunnel out there at Moffett Field. On the East Coast, on the other side of the speed spectrum, you'll find the hypersonic wind tunnels out at White Oak, where we can replicate the flight conditions of re-entry vehicles and things at very, very high speeds, very, very high Mach numbers. Now, on to Eglin Air Force Base. Eglin is primarily known for its specialties of munitions test and development, as well as cyber test and development. But there's a lot more to it. You can see in this clip the F-35, for instance, undergoing its range of climatic conditions and testing in a very high ice condition at the McKinley Climatic Lab, where we can simulate any kind of a climate, from a sandstorm to a blizzard to the baking sun. All of that, and the high-speed test track at Holloman Air Force Base, where you'll see that little clip at the bottom. That's a Mach 2 weapon delivery test out in the White Sands of New Mexico. More familiar to you, though, is the 412th Test Wing, Brigadier General Schaefer's wing, here at Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards, as you probably are all aware, consumes much more history than it can consume locally. The icons of the 20th century, many into the 21st century, have all come from little Edwards Air Force Base, out in the middle of the Mojave Desert. It was placed there on purpose. First as a training location, scouted out by a young Lieutenant Hap Arnold, who was stationed at March Field back in the early 1930s and late 1920s. Landed on the lake bed and said, "This is perfect. We don't even need a runway. We'll just do bombing and gunnery training out here out of March Field." That eventually grew into the weapon and aircraft test facility that you see at Edwards Air Force Base today. On the left, you can see the Benefield Anechoic facility. This is a huge hangar that's completely isolated electronically from the surroundings. We can conduct highly classified tests within that without any of the electronic emissions making it outside for curious but maybe unfriendly ears to hear. A facility large enough for a large-scale bomber to run through a series of electronic warfare tests. Of course, the F-35 is the big program as it's nearing the end of its systems development phase and going into its follow-on modernization program. It's giving way to what you see at the bottom of the slide there, the new Air Force tanker, the KC-46, which is here to replace the KC-135, which is actually an Eisenhower administration weapon system. Now, demographically, you see the whole test center represented in the upper left, but the Edwards Air Force Base demographics there on the right. More than half civilian, a large contractor workforce, and a large uniformed military workforce. Like I said, this is not Base X. This isn't like any other Air Force base anywhere in the world. A very highly skilled, very highly motivated workforce. Getting to do, quite frankly, the coolest things in the world. I remember when I drove on Edwards Air Force Base for the very first time. I was going to the Air Force Test Pilot School. I couldn't believe my good fortune. My wife and our 4 little girls followed along behind me. We were caravanning our 2 family cars. Pauline, my wife, with the girls girls in the minivan behind me as we drove in North Base, and I drove down Contractors Row, and I could see, you know, one of everything, right? The coolest place on earth. I couldn't believe how cool this was. I looked in the rearview mirror. Pauline is crying, going, "Oh my gosh, she has no feel for how cool this place really is." Well, it didn't take her long to warm up to Edwards Air Force Base. Now this is our third assignment back here at Edwards. It feels more like home than any other Air Force base that we've been to. I've moved her 26 times. All of our 4 daughters have gone to every grade. We represent over the 4 of those girls every single school grade at the little schools on Edwards Air Force Base. And thanks to you and a great school system, I haven't had to pay a cent for any of their college educations. They were very well prepared, very well prepared. Now we need people. We need people that can do these kinds of jobs. This is not your garden variety stuff. These are the hard classes. The ones that endanger your GPA. We need STEM education. We need a school system that can supply us with engineers, pilots, and all of the other people that make Edwards Air Force Base work. In fact, if you can tell what's happening to this F-16 in this example, we might have a job for you. Now, Edwards Air Force Base isn't just the 412 test wing, but we also have partnerships and tenant arrangements with a variety of other Air Force, DOD, and government agencies, as well as foreign partners. That's what brings the demographic up to the numbers that I've talked to you about. Here at Edwards, we divide our work into test forces. You'll see the Global Power Fighter Test Force, where we are the center for F-16 tests. We're also doing the Saudi Arabia version of the F-15E, operating out of Plant 42, but managed by the Global Power Fighter Combined Test Force. Our Global Vigilance Test Force conducts tests on all the major unmanned, remotely piloted aerial vehicles, including the Predator, the Reaper, and the Global Hawk you see. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, and a huge undertaking with many foreign partners, as well as the Navy and the Marine Corps, all coming to Edwards Air Force Base for their tests. Edwards is also the home of the Air Force Test Pilot School, a year-long, very rigorous course, both academically and in the air, granting a master's degree in flight test engineering. Near and dear to my heart, there on the bottom, all the bombers. I was a bomber guy, a B-1 guy, along with Chester. We have B-1, B-52, as well as the B-2. Those weapon systems are proving their value in operations around the world every day, as is the F-22 Raptor. It still is undergoing its modernization program tests at Edwards. Down in Plant 42, the B-2 gets overhauled, the U-2 gets overhauled and tested. We also do hypersonics, including many of the safety support functions for some of the contractors that you've heard about at the Mojave Spaceport. And last but not least, Global Reach, where the C-17, the KC-135, and the brand new KC-46 are being tested. Now, this is a business conference, so let's get down to the numbers. Edwards Air Force Base is the #1 employer with $520 million in annual payroll. The contractors there, well over $300 million. And the value of the indirect payroll and jobs created amount to more than, $664 million. For a total of $1.49 billion in economic impact to the Antelope Valley. And as you can see on the right, it's the #1 employer here in the Antelope Valley as well. I'm proud of that. To run an Air Force base takes a lot of work. It takes men and women who are dedicated to the mission. It takes a community that's willing to embrace young airmen who've never been anywhere but home. This might be their very first assignment. They're making a judgment about the Air Force based on the community that the Air Force base resides in. So thank you very much for your support. It's a wonderful arrangement. It's a wonderful symbiotic relationship between the Antelope Valley businesses and the Air Force that provides some of the economic impact that we talked about. It's that support which equals, and I'll close out in the spirit of the Antelope Valley Rocks with a little video. I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty cool job. Thank y'all very much for your attention.
Mars today. The Opportunity and Curiosity rovers continue to explore the surface of the red planet this year, with data from Curiosity showing that signs of a form of nitrogen is further evidence that conditions on ancient Mars may have been able to support life. And one day, they'll support a visit by an American astronaut, and that's the agency's biggest objective right now. This past year, after a decades-long journey, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft completed a historic flyby of the planet Pluto, making it the first ever space mission to explore a world so far from Earth. We're able to see details and features of Pluto that really surprised everybody. In NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, a great observatory that's forever transformed our understanding of the universe, celebrated 25 years of scientific discovery. There's been 15 years of continuous human presence on the International Space Station, and this week, astronaut Scott Kelly is completing a year-long mission in space. So there's a lot going on in the agency. A little closer to home, in the video you saw some of the exciting accomplishments and achievements that happen here in the Antelope Valley at Armstrong. And that's not everything, it's really just a snapshot. We continue to develop new ways to observe and study Earth's interconnected natural systems and share this unique knowledge with institutions around the world to gain insight into how our planet is changing. With the Antelope Valley Board of Trade's strong support, the SAPIA continues to perform world-class astrophysics from within this community. And last year, we celebrated NASA's long aviation research heritage with the 100th anniversary of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. That was the organization with the predecessor for NASA. The Armstrong Center heritage goes back 70 years with NACA and NASA in the Antelope Valley to the flight of the first X-series research airplanes, the supersonic X-1. The X-1 was the first of many unique experimental aircraft flown at Armstrong. In our future, with your help, will grow even brighter as NASA Aeronautics shows the way with a new generation of experimental aircraft. NASA Aeronautics plans to develop and fly new X airplanes that are fueled by greener energy, use half the fuel, are only half as loud as today's aircraft. NASA's proposed budget includes a $3.7 billion initiative called New Aviation Horizons. This initiative will start a continuing series of experimental aircraft to prove high-value concepts and technologies. We will develop and demonstrate a series of X-planes for ultra-efficient commercial flight, hybrid electric propulsion, and low-noise supersonic aircraft. The supersonic aircraft will produce design data for the production of quiet, high-speed aircraft, enabling supersonic flight over land without an annoying sonic boom. We believe that the noise from sonic boom can be made acceptable to people on the ground, and this new airplane will establish U.S. leadership in this unserved global market. The initiative calls for the production and test of an ultra-efficient hybrid wing body transport aircraft that will reduce aircraft emissions and fuel burns and noise by well over 50% compared to today's fleet. This will be the shape of aviation in the future. The initiative calls for the production and test of purpose-built transport aircraft that will investigate configurations that will explore new areas of aerodynamics and structural efficiency. The initiative calls for the production and test of an all-electric transport aircraft that will enable commuter and future hybrid-powered transport aircraft configurations. A new airplane that we are working on right now called Scepter will fly at 15,000 feet and 200 miles an hour and show a 5 times energy benefit and a direct operating cost reduction of at least 30% using renewable energy. Distributed electric propulsion will be used for takeoff and landing as a high-lift device that has been studied for decades and is now viable with distributed electric propulsion motors. And we had the economists come up a little bit earlier. So I need to show at least one data chart or one economic chart. This chart shows why the timing is right for this initiative. Looking at the air transport market now, with 2014 data to 20 years out to 2034, the global demand for moving people and cargo through the air and a fierce international competition will grow. International Air Transport Association forecast a doubling, 3.3 billion to 7 billion passengers flying worldwide by 2034. This is a market that impacts 58 million jobs now, growing over to 100 million jobs by 2034. Airbus predict that over 36,000 new transport aircraft for both replacement and growth will be required over the next 20 years. That's a $4 to $5 trillion value. So the timing is right for NASA and the nation. Again, if commercialized by industry, these NASA-developed concepts and technologies could lead to aircraft that use half the energy generated of 1/4 of the emissions and are much, much quieter than the current generation of aircraft. All of these proposed experimental aircraft will be scaled to fully evaluate the aerodynamic and integrated systems consideration of future production aircraft. The production of these experimental aircraft will be through a full and open competitive process, and I expect that many, if not most of them, will be built by our local industry partners. So where do you come in? Where does the Board of Trade come in, and you as business and community leaders come in? This new Aviation Horizons initiative requires public and business community support to become a reality. I ask that when you have the opportunity to do so, to reach out and speak up on the merits of this initiative. This initiative will not just benefit the Antelope Valley. This initiative will improve the aerospace industrial base for the entire nation. It's going to create high-value jobs and spur innovation across the country. Our heritage here at Armstrong, our 70-year heritage, is in high-risk, high-payoff experimental aircraft. The technological benefits of that heritage can be seen in just about everything that's flying today. Our role at Armstrong is to ensure that the right balance of physics-based analysis, simulation, ground test, and flight research is used to appropriately validate these new designs. You know, what makes me confident that we can achieve these objectives? It's the people here of the Antelope Valley. At Armstrong, we have a 70-year history of achieving. And with the Antelope Valley's business community's help, we will continue to lead the nation and the world in aerospace innovation. Thank you.
For the production of the Air Force's next generation bomber. This is a tremendous opportunity to continue building our community's position as a global leader in the aerospace industry and an opportunity for economic development that we must maximize. I'll be working this year on a new effort to create a research institute run by the University of California here in the Antelope Valley called the California Institute for Aerospace. Having Edwards Air Force Base and Plant 42, along with many aerospace-related companies operating in this area, we're primarily positioned to benefit from the public-private partnerships a research institute would bring here. Much like Stanford was a catalyst for innovation in the Silicon Valley, the Institute for Aerospace will help spur the development of new technology here in the Antelope Valley, and it will help secure additional jobs researching and designing the next generation bomber. I'm confident the Antelope Valley is on the path to recovery from some trying times, and we're now focused on the future. But we need California to focus on job-friendly policies to make it easier to do business. This means cutting down on unnecessary red tape and keeping taxes affordable. Restoring some common sense to government is key to our future. While some challenges remain, we have the talent, work ethic, and leadership to drive our community into the future. Thank you to the Antelope Valley Board of Trade for putting on this important event, and remember that AV rocks.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you today again and talk about our fabulous roundtable report. As the president of GAVEA, I get to be the cheerleader for the entire Antelope Valley. As a native of the Antelope Valley, this is probably the best job ever because I get to brag an awful lot about this great place we call home. The GAVEA Roundtable Report is a collection of data of 23 zip codes throughout our region, North Los Angeles and Southeast Kern County. When GAVEA was founded 15 years ago, we started writing this book specific to the Antelope Valley only. Not Bakersfield MSA, not the LA County MSA, specific only to the Antelope Valley. This book is a purposeful event every year. We beg and plead for the cities and the counties and the chambers and the EDCs that we partner with to share their stories with us so that we can tell the story worldwide. We published 5,000 copies of the Roundtable Report this year, and we intend to take it everywhere. Every Chamber of Commerce, there's 18 of them across our region, should have these in their hands. Every city hall, every Board of Trade, every airport should have our story and share it. This book couldn't be done without our sponsors, and I want you all to recognize and help me recognize all of our sponsors that help pay for this book. It's not a cheap thing to publish. It's expensive, it's long-term, it's lasting, it lasts for a year. But please take a moment and let's thank all of our sponsors for this year's Roundtable Report. More importantly is the staff that gets to help put this together. And this year we hired a fantastic team. First of all, I want to introduce you to Sahara White and PJ Delgado. They're here in the audience, PJ and Sahara. We also got help from one of our SOAR interns, Miss Alexis Lawson, she's fabulous, and Julian Corpino, who's a student at ABC, and he helped us collect a lot of the demographic data that's important to this report.
Mark Troth of Berkshire, Hathaway, Home Services, Troth, Realty.
Got to stick with the theme, you know. Lock on. Fortunately, I can't read with these things on. I took it from Gene Simmons last night. So, good afternoon. How's everyone doing out there? Good conference so far? Oh, the clicker, you took my... Before I get going, how about if we give Vicki and Kelly and Josh and the rest of the Outlook Conference Committee a hand? So on behalf of the Greater Antelope Valley Association of Realtors, thank you for the opportunity to once again present our Regional Housing Report for 2016 to the Antelope Valley Board of Trade Business Outlook Conference. You know, as I was standing backstage, I was kind of thinking that a few years back, I guess a lot of years back, if I had told my high school buddies that I was going to be the opening act of Gene Simmons, they'd say, "What are you on? You need to share it." And so anyways, we look at the housing market heading into 2016. I think that this next slide will pretty much sum things up as to what we can expect as we move from 2015 into 2016. See, Marvin, you're not the only one that's not working. Whoops. There we go. So as we move into 2016, many of the same factors that were with us a year ago are still with us. We're still dealing with a shortage of homes on the market. We still have great prices, albeit a little bit higher than last year. And even though the Feds raised short-term interest rates in December, we've actually seen interest rates decline and now settle down. So what are the headwinds that the Antelope Valley real estate market is dealing with as we continue to recover? I hope this presentation this afternoon will shed some light on where we are and, in my opinion, where we'll head through 2016. Before we get into the balance of my presentation, I've got a little disclaimer. Not like the guy this morning. I'm not an economist. I have an AA from AVC, my alumni. We've got economists that are making predictions about the economy and the real estate market. The funny thing is, these predictions are all over the place. The statistics that I'm using today are for the Greater Antelope Valley Association of Realtors MLS system, and boiled them down to what is considered the major Antelope Valley markets. My conclusions come from a lot of research, and more importantly, lots of conversations with agents, buyers, and sellers that are out in the market. From the end of 2014 through 2015, our market continued healing from the markets of 2007, 2008, 2009, when bank-owned properties and short sales dominated the market. Equity sales grew in 2015 a few points from last year, while bank-owned properties remained about the same, and short sales shrank a few points. Bank-owned properties continue to make up about 5% of the market. I think they'll continue at that rate as we move forward. I would envision that equity sales will continue to grow a few percentage points in 2016 as homeowners continue to gain equity, as prices increase, and they've had another year to pay down their loans. This will allow more homeowners, should they decide to sell, either put more money down on their next purchase or perhaps a few more dollars in their pocket. Looking back, values in our valley peaked in 2006 when the median price was right around $335,000. The number of resale homes that closed escrow peaked in 2009 when just over 8,500 homes were sold. In a few short years, from mid-2006 to mid-2009, our median price dove from that $335,000 to $125,000, or over a 60% decline in values. As you can see, in 2012, we began the steady climb out of the cellar and have seen decent appreciation rates since then. From this time last year to the end of 2015, our market did show a healthy increase in the median price of just over 10%. We ended 2014 with a median price for the major Antelope Valley markets of just under $200,000 and ended 2015 with a median price of $2,500. As the number of homes sold in the major Antelope Valley markets increased by 549, from 4,318 homes sold in 2014 to 4,867 homes sold in 2015. This increase in activity was about a 13% year-over-year increase. Here we take a look back at the active listing activity and average list price in the major Antelope Valley market areas over the last decade. The green line shows the average list price, while the cabernet bars show the number of homes on the market as of January of that given year. It was through 2007, 2009 that owners were trying to chase the market down as it crashed. The average list price of homes had hit almost $400,000 in 2006, 2007, and truly hit bottom in 2012 when the average list price was $175,000. The number of homes available for sale peaked in early 2008 when nearly 5,000 homes were on the market for sale. At this time last year, our average list price was right at $225,000. As we began 2016, we were pushing approximately $275,000 as the average list price, or approximately a $50,000 increase in 12 months. This, of course, is being caused by a decrease in inventory. The number of homes on the market for sale at the beginning of 2015 was 1,250 and is now under 1,000 homes for sale at the beginning of 2016 and continues to be slightly declining. So as mentioned last year and worthwhile repeating this year, one would think, and it would make sense, in such a tightness of inventory, that there would be a lot more of an upward pressure on prices. And with that, you'll experience typically a 3 to 5% appreciation. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we've been in truly what would be defined as a seller's market with less than 4 months of home on the market for sale. However, even with the tightness of inventory, our market continues to move rather slowly towards full recovery, unlike other regions in the state and nation where values have already returned to pre-recession levels. As previously mentioned, inventory in the Antelope Valley has continued to shrink, and as we enter 2016, the major market areas in the valley have seen a further decline in market supply. In fact, it could probably be argued that if you were to just take those listings that are priced at a point where they would have a chance of appraising for financing, that our valley's market supply of homes would probably be closer to 2 months. So before we go off into the fun part of my presentation, looking at where the market is headed next, I thought I would share this slide with you. Here we take a look at the median sales price rankings by zip code in 2015. To really no one's surprise, the 93551 zip code, West Palmdale, had the highest median sales price in the valley during 2015 at $307,000 and had the second highest number of homes sold at 827. West Lancaster, 93536, ranked second at $268,000 in median sales price, however had the highest number of closed sales at 1,064 in 2015. I think what might be a little bit surprise to some people is that the Rosamond market actually had a tick higher median sales price than both Central and East Lancaster. So as I gaze into my crystal ball, what does the balance of 2016 and beyond hold for the real estate market in the Antelope Valley? Let's take a look. As mentioned earlier, even though the Feds increased short-term interest rates in December of last year, we only saw a slight bump in long-term mortgage rates. As the global and U.S. economies have shown some sign of weakness over the last couple of months, interest rates have actually settled down. They're now, once again, south of 4%. It is my thoughts that we will likely see interest rates through the first and second quarter of 2016 remain at or below 4%, and then moves 4% a little bit higher towards the end of the year. The unemployment rate in the United States, California, as well as right here in Lancaster and Palmdale, have continued to improve from last year to the point where both cities are well below 8% unemployment according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. What is far more difficult to get an accurate number on is the underemployment or workplace participation rates. You just can't find accurate graphs or numbers for those. These, of course, are folks that have taken a lesser paying job from a few years ago, or are working part-time when they really would like to be working full-time. Or, of course, those folks that have dropped out of the labor market altogether. So depending on what you read, what graph you look at, adding the underemployed or those that have dropped out of the workforce altogether back into the unemployment rate, we could actually be looking at a number that is in excess of 10% and possibly as high as 20 to 25%. I've mentioned a number of times about the shortage of inventory. You read about it all the time, clear across the nation, shortage of inventory. Why are there so few homes for sale? One of the main reasons is that folks are just staying put. The trend used to be that people would move about every 7 to 10 years, which in turn would open up inventory for those people on those bottom rungs of the housing ladder. Recent studies have showed that this trend is changing. As you can see, it is now common, typical, for homeowners to stay put in their house approaching 20 years.
This year, the Antelope Valley Board of Trade is proud to announce Antelope Valley Film Liaison Pauline East as the 2016 Navigating Change recipient. Pauline is Antelope Valley's one-woman, full-service film and video linked to Hollywood, the advertising industry, and new media graphics producers. As one of the busiest film commissioners in the state of California, Pauline constantly reads story treatments, scouts locations, making her Hollywood's go-to person when it comes to the high desert region. Valley locations have replicated places from around the world. Antelope Valley moviegoers and television watchers have seen east side locations double for Texas, New Mexico, Morocco, and even the moon. While west side locations have represented Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and among other states.
Through her efforts, the Antelope Valley has been a part of a few films you may have heard of. A little picture called Iron Man, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, and The Terminal, as well as countless television shows, commercials, music videos, and photo shoots. Because of her work, the Antelope Valley Film Office facilitates more than 300 film projects a year, on average generating an annual economic impact in excess of $10 million to the North Los Angeles County region.
It's an honor, my gosh, and I even get paid for this job and get that beautiful honor. I want to have a shout out to my friend Ingrid, I think you're here. For introducing the nomination for my consideration. It's amazing. I'm up against this, you heard the list, robotics and PhDs or whatever. Anyway, it started in 1996 when the city of Lancaster recognized the economic benefits of promoting the greater Antelope Valley. My gosh, it was kind of a real mindful thing for them to do, and not a lot of cities were creating film offices at that time. So in 1998, I had a chance of taking the helm of the ship they brought to shore. Work with a team that realizes that and does a really great job of responding. That is a success. I don't get a no when I make a call. I get someone saying, how can we do it? Well, let's try this one. Now, I've heard all the stories today. I'm so impressed. And I have the best stories to tell, but I can't tell you who's in town because I signed these little NDAs that don't allow me to talk about a project until it's left and gone in the can. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you who's in town today. You already know, Gene Simmons. Yahoo! And we've been the first in many, many breakthrough opportunities. When I got a call they were scouting to tear up a road to make music. I said, oh, that'll be pretty easy. So we made the first musical road in the United States. The city of Lancaster was behind it, made it happen. It was so successful. We had a few speed bumps in that we didn't realize how far the music would carry, and it carried.
And you and the folks here at Antelope Valley for doing this event, because the only way we're going to learn is by business to business. One person listening to another person, because you know stuff I don't know and I know stuff you don't know, ad infinitum ad nauseum. What a wonderful day to be alive, isn't it great? You know, I say that to myself every day I wake up.